Welcome to the Buck Brief, coming to you from Nashville. That's why things look a little different here. And we've got the Trump speech aftermath. Democrats in total disarray. That's the word that you'll be hearing a lot because it is so obviously true. We've also got the strategy of random federal judges being able to step in and decide that the commander-in-chief doesn't really get to make decisions about the executive branch. Any solitary federal judge anywhere in the country can now, and this is unfortunately according to a recent Supreme Court 5-4 decision from today, can now decide to just tell you what policy is going to be, I guess. I don't know what they believe the outer limits are. Any federal judge who is a hashtag resistance anti-Trump type can subvert policy. But let's start with the speech and what the biggest takeaways from it are right now. Trump says America's back, dawn of the golden age of America. Very exciting stuff. It was an incredibly positive speech overall. Trump talked about his accomplishments so far, talked about the scale of the victory of this last election, which was momentous in and of itself, and then just got into a lot of the plans for the future, the things that he wants to get done. And that includes, of course, exposing the waste, fraud, and abuse of current government spending. Now, this is the fascinating dynamic that is becoming the defining point of everything that we see in politics right now between Trump and the Democrats, Trump Republicans and the left. And it is they have to oppose things that they have to know are politically damaging for them. But because Trump has picked issues where he not only has momentum, but a solid majority of the American people behind him on those issues, because of that, they are just making their situation worse. They haven't figured out at all what the plan is going to be for opposition. They have not been able to settle on any kind of solid anti-narrative of Trump, other than they hate him, he's horrible, he makes them cry, all that stuff. But overall, it's quite clear that Trump is going to continue to rack up wins. As everyone has noted, we are not tired of winning. And the Democrats are going to be in this position where they have to just pout about it. It seems very pouty, very whiny. All the interruptions, all of the different shenanigans, the paddles in the audience, all this kind of stuff that were going on. That was, I think, exposing a Democrat Party that is, I said, it's in disarray. It is discombobulated. It is dispirited. A lot of D words here. It is, at least temporarily, deconstructed. It is in a very bad state of affairs. And it's because when you tell your people, not only are you going to beat the political opposition, but you're going to be in a place where that opponent is in prison and his followers are going to be humiliated, hounded by the federal bureaucracy and by law enforcement on partisan witch hunts, all of that. And none of it happens. You bring these charges, you bring all this stuff, and then he wins by this huge it's the biggest own goal, really, in American politics. We often talk about Trump as an incredible comeback story, the most incredible political comeback story of all time, which is certainly the case. I don't even think there's any counter argument to that right now. But there's also what the Democrats did to propel him or to help propel him in that effort. I think that they miscalculated in a way that is so profound that they are scared to even go there. Like they can't even consider the possibilities of how much they messed this thing up and how much they delivered this for Donald Trump in a lot of ways. How much they put him in a position where they were rigging the system against him. They were weaponizing the DOJ. All these different things that we know. Obviously, he survived not one but two assassination attempts. They put him in a place where his talent, skills, and his grit were so powerful that it has shattered their system. I mean, they've shattered the different anti-Trump media outlets, CNN, MSNBC, a shadow of their former selves. New York Times, same thing. Washington Post, same thing. All of these so-called journalistic enterprises that have turned themselves to a delusional diet of anti-Trumpism have just disintegrated in terms of their credibility and in terms of their audience, their readership, their viewership. There's no way to view this as anything other than a massive loss for them. So here's the next part of this, though. That Trump is in an incredibly strong position right now is without saying, and the Republican Party along with him, he's, of course, leading it. The fight for life is ongoing day in and day out, and on the front lines of it, Preborn. Preborn has a network of clinics across the nation who have a very simple but profoundly important mission, which is to save the lives of as many tiny babies as they possibly can. And they do this by putting their clinics in areas of the country where abortion rates are highest and offering women an alternative to abortion with love and care and support. Now, this process usually starts with an ultrasound because once mom sees that tiny heartbeat, she knows the choice here has to be for life. But Preborn needs your help in this mission. They get no government funding. All you have to do and what you can do right now to help them is go to preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Consider donating $28 a month to be a sponsor for Preborn's incredibly important network, saving lives day in and day out. But now we get to the next phase. And the next phase of this is what can be done, what can be accomplished. This is where there's a little bit of discouraging news. And, on the radio show, we talked to Stephen Miller about this earlier, who's the Deputy White House Chief of Staff. And he says it's one of the biggest problems that the Trump White House faces, and that is what to do about these universal injunctions. This was a problem in the first Trump term as well. And this is essentially the federal judges. Remember, the Supreme Court is a creation of the Constitution. The lower federal courts are a creation of Congress, and yet these lower federal courts have decided that they have the ability, effectively a universal jurisdiction. So on any federal matter anywhere when Trump is president, they can just weigh in. And they also, so jurisdiction doesn't really matter, right? If something's happening in D.C. and some judge in Massachusetts doesn't like it, he says, oh, well, you can't do that, D.C. So that has been going on. And there has also been, unfortunately, a Supreme Court decision that's come down. Amy Coney Barrett is a huge disappointment. Yes, she was necessary for overturning Roe v. Wade. So that was a good thing, an obvious thing, should have happened a long time ago, a good thing. But now we have somebody who's essentially sides with soft authoritarianism at every opportunity, which is there really such a thing as soft authoritarianism? Maybe. Authoritarianism with a smile, liberal fascism, to borrow from Jonah Goldberg's book of a couple of decades ago. So we have the judicial challenge, or the challenge from a component of the judiciary to the agenda that Trump is trying to pursue. And in the most recent instance, it was the Trump administration didn't want to pay $2 billion that USAID was going to pay out. And these, by 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court said, no, the federal judge who says you have to pay this stuff out and you have to do it quickly, arbitrary time frame, I might add. Why does it have to get paid when the federal judge says that it does? Way beyond his jurisdiction. 4 of the Supreme Court justices noted this, but Roberts and ACB were, as they tend to do, siding with the system against, I think, the clear intent of the Constitution and the founders. And so that's a massive problem going forward, because what you're going to have is the 60-vote threshold in the Senate is the challenge to getting major legislation through. Democrats will filibuster. Notice how our side doesn't even talk about eliminating the filibuster. Their side would threaten it, talk about it, and I think under the right circumstances for them, they would do it. Our side doesn't even have that discussion. Republicans don't even bring this up as a possibility. And then on the other side of things, we have the judiciary blocking the executive branch actions. So because we don't have the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, I would love to think that we could get there in the next midterm, but who knows? Because we don't have that, major legislation is not really possible. Reconciliation to get through major spending, and there are things that can be done through the legislative branch that will have the effect of policy and I think be very powerful for what Trump is trying to accomplish. But a lot of this is going to get tied up in the courts very quickly. And they always say, oh, we have this solid conservative Supreme Court, at least the Democrats say that. It's just not true. That's just not a reflection of reality. We do not have a solid Supreme Court on a whole range of issues because we have Roberts and ACB. You really only have 4 conservatives on the court, 4. And then you have 2 Sandra Day O'Connor clones, essentially. And then you got some communist left-wingers who don't care what the Constitution, what the law says. It's just whatever they feel like, whatever kind of mood left-wing activist Sotomayor is in any given day is going to determine what her Supreme Court jurisprudence will be. Next week, I get to do something exciting with my dad, and you're all invited to join us. I grew up in New York City, where my dad made his living researching and predicting the stock market. He was good at it, too. In his line of work, you're a hero if your predictions come true. When they don't, you've got a fair amount of additional homework to do. Thankfully, he was right on the big ones. All that to say, next week, I'm hosting a video seminar with my dad where he'll make another big forecast on the markets. Write this date down, March 12th at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. on the West Coast. It'll be online in video form and super easy for you to register free of charge online. Modesty aside for a minute, my dad created a name for himself on Wall Street by his predicting things in an uncanny way. The most notable, calling the crash of 1987, and then again calling the crash in 2009. His predictions are too numerous to mention, but the latest one comes on March 12th, so register for it online and see us an hour before this program starts that day. To sign up for the free event, go to disruption2025.com. That's disruption2025.com, paid for by Paradigm Press. So this is a major challenge that we're going to continue to see, and it's really all the Democrats have left. So you can expect some of these judges to dig into this a whole lot more, and I think they're going to try it on a range of issues that pertain to DOJ. So whether it's firing worthless federal employees or stopping spending that should not be happening, that's frivolous, that's absurd, there's no oversight. Judges are going to keep stepping in and saying, no, you have to do that because I say so. And then maybe the Supreme Court sides with them. Maybe they side with the Trump administration. But it just grinds down. It grinds down the gears of government and really sabotages what the mission is right now. And with as clear of a electoral win as we saw in this last election, you would like to believe that the president can get so much done with these various figures. But you see, if the system is not broken down and then rebuilt, reformed, it is effectively the system that governs, and we just change out individuals within it without actually shifting the policies, right? Meaning the end result of the system stays largely the same. You just have different figureheads moving in and out under the elected official umbrella. So this is a big fight. It's a very important one, because reining in the administrative state is something that we've been led to believe is not really feasible or possible until Trump came along. He was able to make strides in the first administration against it, but Biden came in and did crazy stuff right away. Biden came in, and as we know, he was just a puppet for the system around him. Remember, here it is, the machine again, but the Democrat machine undid a lot of Trump executive. Look at the border. So that's unfortunately the perfect exemplar of what I'm talking about. Trump does excellent things to secure the border in his first term, gets the Remain in Mexico policy going, is handling all of these different holes we have in border security, some intentionally created and widened by Democrats. He does that, and then Biden comes in and makes it the worst border that it's ever been, because it was executive. There was no legislation. There was no legislation from the Congress to add to executive branch prerogatives. We're in a similar position now. And I know right now it feels like the Democrats never can win and the Democrats will never be back in power. They will be at some point. They will mount a comeback. I don't know if it's going to be in 28. I think we're looking really good for that right now, but who knows what 28 is going to look like. They will mount a comeback. So for this to be more permanent, there have to be changes in law and changes to the structure, the system of government itself, which is why they're fighting so hard to prevent these things from occurring. This is really the center of the fight, right? Because if administrations come and go, but the machine, the government, the swamp is forever, elections don't really matter all that much, and especially because Democrats are far more comfortable aggressively wielding power to the extent of even violating the Constitution, going well beyond the clear intent of the words of the Constitution, of the founding, of federal statute. Remember, Obama did this, a pen and a phone. Biden did this with the freeze on rent collection because of COVID, or freeze on evictions, rather, because of COVID, and then also try to do it with student loans a whole bunch of different ways. They will just do what they want to do to the extent they can get away with it. Republicans, for better or for worse, sometimes for better, will have their own internal dialogue and push-pull on, should we do this? Is this constitutional? Is this something that we can justify to ourselves on a governance and ethical level, not just raw power being exercised? So there are big challenges ahead. Trump's speech was amazing, like I said. It does feel like America is back. I'm so pleased with what's going on right now so far in this administration, but we've got to break down this bureaucratic system, the spending. We've got to, DOJ has to be allowed to do its work to completion, and we've also got to have some real reform to these judges who are just left-wing activists in a judge's robe who decide that the president isn't really the president. What would happen if the president said, "I'm the commander in chief. I'm ordering an imminent strike on a Iranian cell that's about to try to strike at a U.S. politician or something," right? Or we're going to have a drone strike overseas to take out an IRGC cell, and some judge in Massachusetts says, "No, you're not allowed to do that." And it would go to the Supreme Court, and hopefully the Supreme Court would side. But how many times can you have these judges? Remember, each delay is to the advantage of those that oppose the agenda of Trump. So delay is its own reward for them. Even if they're overturned when it gets to the Supreme Court, slowing it all down is itself a huge problem. So we have to stop this. And that's what I got for you today from Nashville. I'll be back in Miami tomorrow. Shields high. You'll need to shop with Bear Creek Arsenal to find a great rifle or handgun. That's the place to go. They will perform well and feel amazing. I've got 4 Bear Creek Arsenal guns, 3 rifles, and their Grizzly 9mm pistol. Bear Creek Arsenal manufactures its guns from scratch here in America, and you can order them straight from the website at unbeatable, amazingly low prices. And Bear Creek Arsenal is so confident in its products that it offers a lifetime warranty. I've met and spent time with the owners and team at Bear Creek, and they are fantastic. I've even been at the gun range with them. They're good people who want you to have a great, safe shooting experience, whether on the range, hunting, or for whatever you need your firearms to do. Go to bearcreekarsenal.com and check them out. You won't be disappointed. Use my name, Buck, as your coupon code for 10% off your first order. That's bearcreekarsenal.com. Use my coupon name, Buck, or coupon code Buck for 10% off your first order.